excited to be here today and share with you a good friend of mine. I met him a long time ago, Dan Dillman. I met him, remember, we flew out there.
That's right.
Like in the early 2000s.
Yeah,
we flew out there and met you.
You guys were jet setting, private jets.
We flew in on a private jet to meet you, and you was just finishing up
the documentary. The
documentary of your family, your grandpa, your dad, your uncles, on tracking down the Aztec treasure, and we got to preview it before it got shown to anybody else, and so I wanted everybody else to kind of hear this story. So, and you guys probably know Dan from the hit show Aztec,
Lost Gold of the Aztecs, that was on History Channel. Yeah.
And anyway, so with that, I'm if I'm going to have Dan, I want Dan to tell his family story because it's a great story. But with that, Dan, take it away.
Where do we start?
Let's talk about your family, your grandpa.
Family origin.
Your grandpa and why did the History Channel even come to you with the Aztec treasure? You know, and because you got a great story with your family and
yes. So I'm a third generation treasure hunter. You know, my grandfather Raymond Dillman and my two uncles John and Paul Dillman got me started, obviously, in the family adventures. So back in 1964-65 is when my family started the quest for Montezuma's treasure. Maybe a little sooner than that, but reality is my grandfather and uncles were absolutely into ancient civilizations and paranormal. I could run down the list. But in 1964, Time Life magazine, which this is an original magazine, had an article about the Peralta stone tablets, which I'm sure if you're a follower of this genius, then you have heard about the Peralta stone tablets. Recently I saw something where folks were calling them hoaxes, and I definitely am not here to debate whether they are hoaxes or not hoaxes, but I'll say this, they are real. They're real stone tablets. What could come into debate, and is definitely up for debate, is who created or carved those stone tablets. But that's how we got started, because Time Life magazine had an article spread on the Peralta stone tablets. So my uncles were cleaning out, and my grandfather, being the head supervisor, were cleaning out a neighbor's basement, and they came across the magazine, and my uncles saw the Peralta stone tablets in there, and it was a mystery that nobody could solve. And so they brought it to my grandfather, and make a long story short, he spent years and years working on the stone tablets and deciphering them and coming up with breaking the code, and leading us through latitude and longitude. And I don't know if I've put that out there before, but through latitude and longitude. So there's a code that he deciphered from the Peralta stone tablets that led us to a remote location in Utah, southern Utah, in the early 1980s. And basically, my grandfather was looking for specific signs and symbols. Keep in mind, these signs and symbols weren't on the Peralta stone tablets. It is such a deep and multi-layered story. I don't know where to go. So I'm trying to give
just the brief overview.
The brief overview. So in 1982, through the Peralta stone tablets, my grandfather's deciphering, we make an amazing archaeological discovery in Johnson Canyon, 1982, and where we discover hundreds of dead bodies, some cannibalized, sacrificial altar that also has what some know as a water glyph on it, but it was absolutely being used to sacrifice individuals and toss them over the edge of the mesa there and bury them. And we found clay pots full of turquoise, gold, and all kinds of artifacts. There was so many special artifacts, some that you would say could be standard Native American. Some mainstream archaeology says it was Basket Maker 2, but there were many things that were discovered that transcend just Basket Maker 2, Fremont. Not to say that that's not amazing, because that is. But we found this nodule, and a matter of fact, it's right up there. There's a picture of it, and it's got a symbol on it, and it's made.
Sorry to derail you, because I did not know that it was your family that found that nodule. I've seen that nodule. I didn't know it was your family that found it.
Yes,
So,
it's
cool.
You know, my grandfather and uncles don't get enough credit for what they did. The property owners at the time who my grandfather struck the deal with were the Judd family. And the Judd family, today we have a great relationship. There was a great relationship when my grandfather first arrived. Some things happened and that relationship fell apart. So the Judds ended up keeping all of the artifacts, all of the discoveries. It was their property, even though we had a 50-50 deal with them. I'll just say that things didn't go well, and the Judd family ended up keeping all of those artifacts and get a lot of the credit for the discovery. And like I said, God bless them, so there'll be no negative talk because we're friends. And I've gone to mend old family hurts and wounds years ago, but they still have them. Some of the stuff is in the Kanab Museum.
So Tiger saying, was this in Utah? Yes, it was in Kanab, Utah, in Johnson Canyon. And there's a huge history about Johnson Canyon, about
the Dillmans, Freddie Crystal, Montezuma's treasure. We can run down the list of important things. And something else, too, that a lot of people don't know. It's in our family history, and what we share is Cabeza de Vaca and Estevanico the Black. We believe that we discovered the body of Estevanico the Black. You would have to know some of your early Spanish history. You'd have to know some things about Coronado and Fray Marcos and those adventures to possibly have a glimpse and piece of knowledge about who those two characters were. But it's who my grandfather believed carved those Peralta stone tablets. And because it's so up in the air about the Peralta stone tablets, you know, we're convinced that's who carved them. And they left them for a purpose. Much bigger story. So many dots we'd have to share with you. I would have to share with you. It would be a couple-hour dissertation just to cover the dots and to connect the dots that would give a great case, prove a great case to why these guys could have been the ones to carve them. But make a long story short, not only did we find all of these artifacts, ancient signs and symbols, blue clay symbols that are known for royalty and Aztecs, but we also found another stone tablet,
which is known. Your family called it the fifth.
We called it the fifth stone tablet because it is made of the same sandstone material. It has carvings that are different and similar. And so, for us, for my grandfather, that was the key. That was kind of this for sure, aha, he had deciphered the Peralta tablets that led him to these other stone tablets. And to find another stone tablet with who we believe was Estevanico the Black, along with these artifacts, was pretty amazing. And has also unlocked several other locations for us throughout the decades. And so in a nutshell, we started out grandfather and uncles, and my family, my wife and I, my children, we are continuing the quest. So we're on the move, and we are still discovering really cool, amazing locations and uncovering history. But I want to say this is something that I think is super important to my family's quest, is that we're not just seeking gold and jewels and riches. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing, treasure to us, is ancient records, uncovering history.
No wonder I like you, Dan.
and the reality that, which no one until, I shared not so long ago, a few years ago, but nobody still has asked some simple questions that I asked my grandfather as a kid. Where is Montezuma's tomb? Where is Montezuma's monument? This was the greatest emperor, an Aztec king. He was the highest level spiritual leader, having the esoteric knowledge and wisdom of the ancients carried back from Atlantis. The Aztecs, the Maya, the Inca were all known to be carriers and holders of these ancient records. And here is Montezuma, the top dog. loved by the people. If you really do your research, in our family, we're Aztec Mayan descent, along with, actually, I'm Spanish descent as well on my mother's side, but my father's side, my grandmother was from Michoacan, Mexico. She was born with 6 fingers on each hand, being a 12-fingered being. As long as myself, I was born with 12 fingers, 6 on each hand. And just to let you know that bottom line is that nobody, so everyone loved, the people loved Montezuma. The story that we've been told that the Spanish killed Montezuma and the Spanish saying the Aztec killed Montezuma is not the truth. Why is it not the truth? Cortez told us that he gave Montezuma's dying body to the lords to bring to the people to stop them from attacking and shutting down the markets and all of these things. And there's 3 or 4 or 5 different stories. But here's the thing. This guy, Montezuma, was a super intellect, a super spiritual guy, an amazing warrior, and a loved king, a revered king, not a hated, not a feared king. These are the facts that if you go talk to the indigenous and you talk to those who are truly connected and know the history, that's what they're going to tell you. And they're going to tell you he was loved. So how is it possible that we don't even have a monument in Mexico that says this is where Montezuma died, or this is where we honor Montezuma? This is the monument for him. None of that exists. No one, no historian, no archaeologist, nobody talks about where is the tomb of Montezuma.
That's a good thought. I never thought about that, but yeah, you're right. That's a great thought.
Right? If he was killed, there would be a place that says Montezuma was killed here, and they would have a monument. It's bullshit, excuse my language, that some people say, because there'll be some folks who say, oh, Montezuma was hated. He gave up the kingdom to the Spanish. That's so not true. He was operating from a whole nother level. Remember, he was the spirit. He was the high priest before he ever became emperor. He knew the prophecies of what were to come. He knew of the ages and of technology that we've lost today. The pyramids that are in Mexico, that are in Egypt, that are across this planet is proof of an ancient technology that was universal, and that all continents were in union and in communication and using this technology. There's proof here right before our eyes that says there was a universal technology, there was a universal mathematics, astronomy, all of it. It's there. We just don't, most people don't want to believe it.
Man, you're going places I didn't even know you knew about and I don't know about. That's all news and to me and kind of interesting.
Right.
So, but you did say when I was doing this that you was into UFOs, into spirituality, I thought you was just a treasure hunting. Man, you're well rounded.
Well, thank you. And I don't want to ramble too much, what you guys don't want to hear. But I will say that obviously, treasure hunting is the word, the term that we use. Whatever, it's fine. But it transcends and I'm sure most of you, a lot of you have had experiences, right? So we'd be out in the desert searching for sites and locations as a kid. I started when going out with my uncles and grandfather at 8 years old out here into the deserts of southern Utah. And we would be, unlike today, I've got a pretty dope ass 4x4 Mercedes adventure van that I could shower, use the bathroom, and sleep in while we're out in the mountains. But back then, we had, my uncles and grandfathers didn't come from money, and we had to scrape up what we had to go on our adventures. We would sleep out in the desert with no tents, no sleeping bags. We would be straight roughing it. We had water and some bologna sandwiches while we're out in the desert for days doing what we're doing. And I guess what I was going to say is we have seen things that a lot of people haven't. We have had unidentified flying objects follow us, orbs of light show up that are unexplainable. There were no drones showing up in 1982, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, and 89, and 90 in our area while we're out in the desert. Remote nowhere, different. The stories are endless, and I can go on and on, but bottom line is there are things that are happening in our skies that we're unaware of. And keep in mind, it is technology And some of it's our government nowadays, no doubt. But this technology and this phenomena has been happening in our skies for eons, and it's been documented by the natives. And again, from India to China to the Americas, the ancients have told you straight up, this is what they've experienced, and it's still happening today. But if you're not open and receptive and ready, then you'll never have the experience. So we have. So being a treasure hunter, starting out as treasure hunting, you turn into a historian, right? How many of you are experts, probably know more than some of your teachers would have known in school teaching history, because they were only teaching what they were taught. And we go down rabbit holes, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
There's no doubt, even common sense, you don't need to go to Harvard to put together Aslan and Atlantis are the same place. And we have mystics who existed, in our time, Edgar Cayce, Helen Blavatsky, who all even said, Manly P. Hall. There are ancient records that exist that clearly state that Atlantis and the Aztecs and the Maya and the Inca, basically the high priest, those high priests of all of those cultures, we're connected to Atlantis, and we're the keepers of the records. And that's one of the things that we're looking for. There's no doubt that we believe that the tomb of Montezuma contains more than riches and gold and jewels. It contains the ancient records of Atlantis. What is that? That's ancient genealogy that goes back to the beginning of time, not just biblical, what we get from the Bible perspective, but we're talking about pre-biblical existence and bloodlines and technology and wisdom. That same technology and wisdom that built the pyramids across the globe. The same technology that said that the earth has a wobble every 23,000 years. These guys had no computers to our understanding. They didn't have any satellites in space to tell them the earth wobbles every 23,000 years and that these star systems and those star systems, it's clear that they had the knowledge and the technology at their disposal. So I think it's ignorant for us to say anytime that they were savages. That's what the Spanish, and hey, that's half my bloodline. My grandparents came from Spain to Cuba. My grandmother, her descendants are conquistadors. So I have the bloodline of both, the Aztec, the Maya, and the Spanish. But my point is, for to ever claim that the Native Americans at any level are savages or uneducated is just absolutely, forgive my French, stupid. Unbelievable ignorance, because the proof is there that they had this knowledge, and they hold on to it today. The Hopi, they have this wisdom that we've lost, and so to me it's evident that anyway. So I'm off on a tangent.
No, man, I'm liking what you're saying. I knew I liked you, but now I really like you.
But there's no doubt. Atlantis, Aztlan connected. I don't necessarily agree that it's Antelope Island, if that's what you're saying, in Utah, but I will say that Utah is absolutely key to this entire adventure, and where I believe we're going to discover the tomb of Montezuma.
So I don't believe Antelope Island either, but at one time I thought that Stansbury Island could possibly be the ancient homeland, and I had some strange things go on out there with me that someday I'll tell that story. It wasn't pretty, but I'll tell that someday. So tell them about Three Lakes.
Sure. So Three Lakes is, I'm going to say this, what most people don't know. All right, so Brant Child, Lon Child, Three Lakes. You can look that up. What most people don't know about Three Lakes is that it was my grandfather's research that pointed to Three Lakes as another location.
I did not know that.
Absolutely. I've got a letter from Arnell Judd, which was Von Judd's wife. She was the owner. They were the owners of the 82 location property. From her to Brant Judd, saying that... Brant Child, that Mr. Dillman, Raymond Dillman, provided this stuff and says the Three Lakes up the road. And then Brant was so into it, he was down at the 82 location. I've even got a photo of him on the sacrificial altar. And because of my grandfather's research and saying this is a location, hey, Brant, God bless him, went out there and acquired the property. And Lon Child will even testify to this, that his father got that information from my grandfather and the Judds. And so Three Lakes is absolutely a special place and holds stuff, treasure. We'll put it that way. There are things to uncover. Unfortunately, right now, the Childs lost the property. The family sold it. So I should say that, it's no longer in the family's possession. It is owned by an organization that doesn't want anyone on that property. I will say this too, Three Lakes, lots of things have happened there. My family and I have worked with the Childs for decades while they own the property, and we have done investigations there as well. Absolutely, something special is in that cavern system. Don't try to go sneak on Three Lakes and go through that lake. I will promise you, you will die. It is death, and for those who were lucky enough to discover it, to find out about that way is death. You'll die. So forget it. Do yourself a favor and don't attempt to sneak on the property or do any of that stuff, because it's not going to work out well for you. Secondly, people have died. Drillers have died. Divers have had unexplainable phenomena happening to them. We have proven there is a tunnel system there. And matter of fact, I have a bunch of footage back from probably, early 2000s, where we documented some of our last expeditions there, and we got 20 feet into the tunnel, and even our barge started sinking. Now, Lon, if you're watching this, I told you not to build the barge. We needed to rent a barge. But it started sinking, and then there was all kinds of legal issues happening that stopped us from our further investigations. But my Uncle Paul, who has passed away a few years ago now, he made it clear that entrance was death. And that was not the way for us to get into that property. So Three Lakes is absolutely a special location. There is a curse attached to this treasure. Why? Because what is meant to be discovered is not meant for one individual to enrich themselves. That's the thing. The real treasure is going to be this ancient wisdom knowledge that is helping the civilization, this fourth world, enter into the fifth world. All of you should, matter of fact, there's a Hopi prophecy. I could possibly play it. My grandfather recorded an audio of the Hopi prophecy of when Montezuma's treasure would be found. Have you seen that on?
I haven't.
Let's see. I'm going to play it. Let's see if it's loud enough.
Dan Kachongba, the old chief of the independent Hopi Indian nation, gave a sign as to when Montezuma's treasure would be found. It will come in a time when the Gentile leaders will turn murderers and thieves loose, almost unpunished, to roam the land and vex the people. In a time when the Gentile people...
Can you guys hear this okay? Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear it.
Men who will establish a secret combination with world leaders, which will sap the strength of the American nation. And in a time when this secret combination of men will have gained such power over the American people to make them as slaves.
So that was the Hopi prophecy. Somebody was reading the Hopi prophecy.
Correct. That was my grandfather, an old recording of him reading the Hopi prophecy that was given in the early 1900s in regards to when Montezuma's treasure would be found. Keep in mind, the Hopi are fully aware of Montezuma's treasure. They're fully aware that it exists, and they understand the magnitude of the true treasure, which, like I said, is ancient technology, ancient records, tools and objects for communicating and opening portals, transdimensional. There is so much stuff. I don't want to go too deep because I don't know at what level, you guys want to hear, because there is very traditional third dimensional treasure. Gold, silver, that doesn't mean shit to me personally. Forgive my French, but it doesn't mean anything to me. What means something to me is uncovering the true history, the true realities of our ancient brothers and sisters who warned us about the path that we're on now. and who have provided solutions for us if we're ready. And that's what I believe a part of Montezuma's treasure is are we ready to transcend, survival of the fittest and, I'm stronger so I could take from you. It really has to be more of that Christ-centered, Hopi-centered, Buddha-centered, Lao Tzu-centered, Krishna-centered, way of life. And so the treasure also is multidimensional. So which can get deep.
So I want to go back to your grandfather, because I don't know if you said this. If you did, I missed it. But I know this. Your grandfather was legally blind.
Yes.
And
yes.
he traveled. He legally blind. He interpreted the stones. He came, told your uncles, your dad, how to get here, what roads to how to get, looking for certain canyons. Tell that story.
My grandfather, from about the age of 10, was legally blind. And if you ever met him, even the judges and other people who have said they met him, that, he was blind. But he would put a magnifying glass up to one of his eyes, and he would put it real close, and he would appear to be reading. But, I asked him one time, I said, Grandpa, how can you, I'm a kid, I want to know. I'm like, dude, you can't see. But he had special powers. There's just no doubt about it. And my grandmother was blind too, by the way. My grandfather, Raymond, and my grandmother, Rosalie, they were both blind. They met at the School of the Blind in Berkeley.
Wow.
And so my grandmother was blind because she got smallpox or something in her eyes when she was born and went blind, eyes totally blue and all that stuff. But anyway, so I asked my grandfather, I said, how can you see? And he told me, he said, when you dream, when you sleep and you have a dream, do you see people and places in your dreams? And I said, yes. He said, that's the same way that I see. So he was telling me that although he was doing this, he basically said, it is my mind that sees, not my eyes. And that was what he was sharing.
So I know that one of the judges, I forget which one, told the story of how your grandfather come up to the house and asked if there was a certain symbol, and they said yeah, and
yep.
And he wanted to know how your grandfather knew all that, and then he had him dig down, and they found, tell that.
Yeah, my grandfather would know things. They weren't written in the Peralta stone tablets. They weren't written down anywhere. So one of the symbols my grandfather was looking for was a giant spiral. This giant spiral, my grandfather said, here, you're going to dig 65 feet down, and you'll discover 3 bodies. And with those 3 bodies, you'll discover this and that. And to everyone's amazement, once again, this is not the Dillman family telling a story to try to make something up to make my grandfather be someone he wasn't. It's true.
The judges tell the same story.
But the judges tell the story. They have no reason. They could have said, oh, we found stuff, we're the ones. They told the truth, God bless them. That my grandfather told them, this is what they'll find. This is how far you have to dig, and this is exactly what you're going to find, to the T. And that's what happened. Because my grandfather was tapping into that higher sense of reality, call it third, fourth dimensional, mental, mind. That's how he explained it to me. And I don't have your scientific reason, but the reality is even with quantum physics and science today, they are starting to jump into what the ancients told us years ago, that everything is consciousness, everything is mind. So there are levels of reality, and he was able to tap into this remote viewing, we can call it. The government has admitted that remote viewing is real. The CIA had a program of remote viewing. Other countries have had the program of remote viewing. My grandfather was doing remote viewing. That's one explanation to share with people. Remote viewing is a fact. It's a reality. And he proved it. And to have other families and other individuals see it unfold before their eyes was awesome. And so that's the type of guy my grandfather was, is that, he was a special dude. You could come, he did, we'll call it a parlor trick, but it was not. If I brought a friend over, or really it was my uncles would have their friends come, and we'd all sit at a kitchen table at my grandfather's or my uncle's, and we'd talk about all this stuff. But my grandfather could tell you how much money was in your pocket. And I can't explain it any other way. It was like a little game they would play, but okay, tap your pocket and I'll tell you how much change you have in your pocket. He could do that.
Really?
Every time. Every time.
Wow,
weird, crazy stuff. But the blind, when you lose sight, because my grandmother was special as well. She had lost her sight, but she raised 5 kids in Oakland, California in the 50s. Right? And there were no caretakers. They didn't have someone in there helping them. I mean, my uncles and dad and aunt would tell us all the time, oh man, she would know we're up to something. Even if she couldn't see nothing, we'd be doing stuff, making faces in front of her, right? And she would know and bust them. So when you lose one sense, it's documented scientific fact that some people get enhanced hearing if they lost their sight. If they lost their hearing, they get enhanced sight. So these things are not unbelievable, even to
I've heard that. Yep.
Yeah, even to those who don't want to hear about that kind of stuff.